And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, Descent 2nd Edition is an absolutely fantastic game, and today we're looking at the first big box expansion for it. That's Labyrinth of Ruin, and this is an expansion that actually comes with a whole new quest that you can play through, and a lot more. I'm not going to show you every single thing from this expansion, but I'm going to show you various bits and pieces so you can get kind of an idea of whether you should get this one or not. The expansion comes with 4 new heroes. I want to point out a couple of them. I really like Logan here because he can't be immobilized, and he's also useful with exotic weapons. This comes up, he's almost the perfect guy to be a treasure hunter in a sense. And then I really like Oma Grimstone. She's essentially the resident alchemist here, because whenever she or someone near her draws a search card, they can, instead of that, basically go until they find a potion. So you need a potion, you take her along. Now, she's not very strong, but she's still involved in the game. Now, to make up for all these different heroes in the game, we have more villains. Here's 2 of the villains. We have the Carrion Drakes and the Goblin Witchers. Now, the Carrion Drakes, you can see they look like miniature dragons. They're pretty mediocre monsters to go up and fight the enemy, but they're fast and they can fly. You'll see here they have a movement of 5. The Goblin Witchers basically can, they can't do much, but they can curse their opponents. That's because this expansion here adds curse cards. And you'll notice that the curse is a new status that you can get with the matching symbols. And when you're cursed, you basically can't do special actions, although you can test one of your abilities to get rid of the curse cards. And the Goblin Witchers are able to do things and move people who are cursed. The other 2 monsters in here, the Volacrux Reavers, who are nasty, nasty creatures, and then these guys are Rakuras, which are basically spiders. Spiders came in Descent 1, they're giant things. These actually work better, they don't take up as much room, and they're very nasty. You can see these spiders here with a lot of attack dice, pierce, pincer, and if you kill them, they will curse the people next to them. While the Volacrux Reavers are just evil creatures. They don't do a ton of damage, but you'll see that they can hit twice instead of moving and attacking. And they have this skirmish thing, which basically lets them move 3 spaces, then attack. So they can move 4, then 3 and attack. So I really like these guys. Now you'll notice that these, like so far, all 4 of the expansions that have come out for Descent have included green dice. Green dice have mostly surges on all the sides of them. Not every side, but almost every side. And a few hit points in range, and are just another way to vary different attacks. The expansion also comes with these 2 folks here, and I don't want to spoil too much about these guys because it's all part of the storyline, but suffice it to say that they can be basically an ally who will help you, or they can become a villain who will go up against you. And then, of course, there's some other big villains that you will fight against, including the Queen of the Spiders, which is kind of cool. The game also comes with some terrain pieces. This is brush. Sometimes there's brush. Brush basically blocks line of sight, but you can move through it and you can spend an action to get rid of it. I guess you're cutting the brush down. Then there's a pile of new unique items. Some of them are cool. There's a lot of new items. I'm just going to show you a few of them. I like this one that lets you teleport around. I like the bearded axe here. Well, if you pierce and they have no shields left, you get +2. Let's see, here's a really cool one. The Bow of the Eclipse, which has a blue, a red, and a green dice and has a chance to have a really high range about it. And the Elvish Boots, which give you extra movement. The Jin's Lamp, which is one of my favorite pieces of equipment, period, because you can tap it every turn to draw a card, and if you get the card you want, you keep it. Otherwise, you keep tapping this until you get the card you want. There's a couple things like this Poison Blowgun and this Serpent Dagger, which allow you to poison the enemy. And then finally they brought back, this is from the original Descent, the Rage Blade, which was probably the most powerful weapon of the ordinary weapons in that game. This one's just cool. It's a one-handed, does a lot of damage, and does some pierce to it. And other things like the Rune of Misery, which is just cool to say. More travel cards were included, which is always good, as well as some more basic things that you can do to the Overlord. They're called Basic 2, and then we have some universals, but these are just basically some ordinary things. Ordinary seems like a pretty strong word, but they're very solid things. Like, for example, let's say, maybe I want Befuddle. Play this after hero passes a test. They must re-roll the test and add 1 shield to the results. And so that's just a very interesting thing, but these also have some specific, like if you play this against a scout, the hero will also suffer a fatigue. If you play this card against a healer, your attack that you do against them gains Pierce 1. So sometimes it's nice to play these cards against specific classes. Speaking of classes, this is always my favorite part of each expansion, to see the new classes. Here we have Treasure Hunter, and the coolest thing about the Treasure Hunter probably is the fact that the Treasure Hunter comes with a whip. And that's really, and the Dead Man's Compass, so he's a mix between Indiana Jones and Captain Jack. But basically, he has a chance to do better searches than anybody else. He's the guy who deals with treasure, to be able to look for treasure. He's not really that powerful. He has some cool abilities, but basically, you know, if he searches, he can do this to move the number of search cards that he has and things like that. So it's all about finding treasures or being able to attack and find treasure on the same turn. The Hexer, on the other hand, is a new mage class that works with these hexes. And you see some hex tokens here. There's actually quite a few of these in the game, because you can use these to hex monsters. And that's all this wizard is about. He's about throwing these hexes at the different creatures and then using them to do different things. For example, here, each time a monster becomes hexed, you can put an extra hex out, and each of your attacks with a magic weapon that targets a hex monster gain Pierce 2. There's ways to stop monsters from moving. There's ways that if a hex monster moves by you, to attack them. There's all sorts of cool things to do. Do this when an Overlord chooses a hex monster, activate. Discard 1 from that monster to do an attack on it. So you can basically interrupt with these hexes. You can hurt monsters, and since you have so many of them, you can basically hex up the whole board. I already mentioned Oma was your apothecary, but now you actually have an apothecary class that comes with some vials which allow you to poison your opponents. And you can brew elixirs, which is a really cool thing. Basically, you can pick somebody else to gain an elixir token. Elixir tokens come with this class, and then someone can discard these elixir tokens to roll a red power die and get that much health back. So you can get up to 3 health back every time you use one of these, and you can give one of these out every turn, basically. So this is a really neat, she's one of the best healers, or anybody who takes this is one of the best healers in the game. But these tokens can be used for other things. There, you can use them to get rid of a condition card. Here you can do them an attack card, and as long as you have at least one of these, you can add an extra surge to the result, and then it gains Pierce 1. So basically, mostly it's defensive, but there are even ways to use these elixirs as an attack thing. It's a pretty cool idea, and I'm glad that they added this class to the game. And then my favorite class from this set, which is the Beastmaster. The Beastmaster comes with a wolf, and you can see the wolf token here. This wolf rolls a red and blue dice and has Pierce 1 to attack. It has a movement of 4 and 3 health, so it's pretty easy for the bad guys to kill. But you can summon this wolf, and it just keeps coming and attacking. It takes an action to put it out, but why wouldn't you? You can have a massive attack yourself with this wolf. And all the cards here, this reminds you of almost the zombie guy from the beginning, the Necromancer, because this wolf just keeps getting better and better. Not to mention, I like the knife that you start with as this guy. And you start with a hunting spear. You start with 2 weapons. But here, for example, if you attack someone who's adjacent to your wolf, you get an extra die. Here, after you immediately declare the target of your attack, you can move your wolf a space. Here, when you perform an attack, if you're adjacent to your wolf, you can re-roll one of the attack dice. This gives you +2 health. When you play this one, each hero next to your wolf gets an additional brown die to their defense. You can do a one-time attack with your wolf that kills them, but it's 2 reds and 2 greens. So some really neat stuff here adding to the game. So I don't want to belabor this any longer than it has to. I think this is a very solid expansion. It adds very basic stuff. Like I said, there's 2 things I look at in the expansions. I like to see more stuff, okay? So having more monsters, having more things, but I also look at the classes. And in this one, the Treasure Hunter class, I don't know that I would ever use that because there's other classes I like better, but the other 3 are really solid. The Hexer, the Apothecary, and the Beastmaster, really cool, and they just have a cool, neat, exciting feeling to them. And, you know, I didn't talk a whole lot or show you much from this quest because I don't want to spoil it for you because there's a lot of cool quests in here, but it's just nice to have another one. I mean, between this and the original game, there are a ton of different things that you can do now and go through. This adds, you know, hours and hours and hours and hours to the basic game. So a very solid expansion, the Labyrinth of Ruin. Get it, unless you're afraid of spiders.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.
There.